Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from our sponsor. The Daily Compliance News for February 10, 2022, the SFO under investigation. And we begin with that story from Mingy Times, writing in the Wall Street Journal, Risk and Compliance Journal. The Attorney General for England and Wales has launched a review of the SFO over problematic issues identified in a bribery case linked to Unaoil. The Attorney General of England and Wales has appointed David Calvert-Smith, former Director of Public Prosecutions and High Court Judge, to lead the independent review of the white-collar crime prosecuting agency. The SFO is in deep trouble for the way it prosecuted the SFO, the Unaoil case against 2 individuals, and what changes may need to be identified or remediation take place. So more hot water for the SFO. It's hard to believe that Lisa Osofsky will survive this scandal, but they're taking a look at it. Next up, from Reuters, a former Wynn Casino executive who was found guilty at jury trial gets a record sentence in the Varsity Blues case. Gamal Aziz had asked for a 4-month sentence, but the judge gave him a week and a day. The judge said that, quote, "It boggles my mind, and yet you did just that. In doing so, in essence, you stole an admission spot from a good college from a deserving student who did not have all of your advantages," end quote. So that's the longest sentence, I believe, of a Varsity Blues convicted person. Next up, we have 2 articles from the New York Times. This really goes to show that you need to vet your training, as China's anti-graft show is educational with unintended lessons. A documentary to celebrate the success of China's anti-corruption program has aired the dirty laundry of the Communist Party and put a spotlight on how they've abused their power and accumulated wealth, getting seafood boxes stuffed with $300,000 in cash, owning fancy houses for nearly every season, running red lights without getting tickets, all those things that the rest of us have to deal with. Apparently, high-ranking officials who engaged in bribery and corruption at the Chinese Communist Party were able to get away with. And finally, Brené Brown is returning to Spotify. She has 2 podcasts on Spotify, which she put them on hiatus after the Joe Rogan imbroglio. But she said that despite her misgivings, she would resume them, largely because she is contractually obligated to provide these podcasts. She's under a multi-year exclusive contract, and she feels the need to honor that contract. So as a lawyer, I certainly appreciate those who represent or recognize the sanctity of contracts, and it puts Brené Brown in a difficult position, however. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.